2019 AP macro free response questions. We're just focusing mostly on the multipliers today. So we're going to start with simply drawing this current aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve in a recession with a recessionary gap. We've got our long run aggregate supply, short run aggregate supply. We need to show aggregate demand to the left of full employment, showing that drop in aggregate demand, which gives us a lower price level and obviously lower output. So we're at Y1 here, we'll call that YF, PL on the vertical, real GDP on the horizontal. Let's make sure we've done everything. We've got our long run, we've got our short run, we've got aggregate demand, we got Y1, we got PL1. We have full employment at YF. Now let's read C. This is where our multiplier comes in. Suppose the Canadian government is unwilling to wait for the long run adjustment process, meaning that they're not going to let the classical view, they're not just going to let it go back on its own. They want to use some kind of either fiscal or monetary policy. As it's government, it implies government spending or taxes will be involved. The marginal propensity to consume is 0.8. The real output is 500 billion. That means where we're actually at is 500 billion. And the full employment output is 540. So we need to get to 540. We're at 500. We need to get to 540. We need 40 billion of GDP. So that's where we're trying to get to, is that 40 billion of GDP to get us back to full employment. That's what we're trying to always get back to with fiscal policy, back to full employment. So they told us we know our MPC is 0.8. That implies our MPS must be 0.2. Remember, these two added together will always give you 1. So if they give you your MPC, which is 0.8, your MPS is going to be 0.2. My multiplier, if I could spell it correctly, my multiplier is just 1 over your MPS, which is 1 over 0.2. 20 cents goes into a dollar 5 times. Your multiplier would be 5. All right, they're saying calculate the minimum change and indicate the direction of change. That's important. In government spending required to shift the aggregate demand curve by the amount of the output gap. So we need 40 billion of GDP. We know that our multiplier is 5. Can't we just divide 5 into 40? And that would give us government spending needs to increase by 8 billion. Now, we could have reversed this the other way, right? Obviously, 5 times 8 equals 40. If they give us the GDP, we divide it by our multiplier, and that'll give us what government spending needs to happen. If they had given us the 8 billion as government spending, we know we just need to multiply that by the multiplier, and that would tell us the amount of GDP that we would actually need. Make sure that you say that government spending is going up here. If you don't, then you're going to lose a point. So we need to make sure we tell whether government spending is going up or going down. All right, calculate the minimum change and indicate the direction of change in taxes required to shift the aggregate demand curve by the amount of the output gap. Recognize that your tax multiplier, because what we figured out here, this was what we call the government spending multiplier. Recognize that the tax multiplier, the short answer, is it's always 1 less than the government spending multiplier. So if our government spending multiplier was 5, we know our tax multiplier has to be 4. We still need 40 billion of GDP. We could divide that by the 4. We know, let me erase that taxes need to go down by $10 billion. Because 10 billion times 4 equals 40. The understanding here is that taxes would have to be lower, would have to go down by a greater amount Obviously, taxes need to go down. We need expansionary policy. So taxes would go down by 10 billion times a 4 to give us a 40 billion increase in GDP. All right, guys. Thanks. Be safe. Bye.